All right, this is a Pro Wrestling Illustrated podcast. I'm your host, PWI senior writer Al Castle, joined by my co-host, as always, Brian Solomon. How's it going?
Happy to be here as always, Al.
Yes, looking sleepy once again.
Is it that obvious?
Those summer nights.
Yes.
And back on the show, PWI contributing writer Scott Fishman. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, we've been trying a little while to get you back on.
Yeah, appreciate you working with my schedule.
Yes, happy to have you back on. Plenty to talk about coming out of Night of Champions. We've got a new King of the Ring. We've got a SummerSlam main event and kind of a picture of where WWE is moving forward here in the summer. We'll get into all of it. Also hoping to discuss maybe a little bit of the history, as it were, of WWE in Saudi Arabia, now that we are, I think, 7 years into the Saudi era, and also maybe some history of King of the Ring and how that's evolved. And if we've got time, might talk a little Goldberg, might talk a little bit All In coming up and whatever else. Real quick, let me, before this is off the shelves, I want to plug the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It is an XL issue, supersized, because it is our super cards coverage of, I think, 9 of the biggest shows that happened earlier this year, including, of course, the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania. Hopefully you've got this by now. I'm pretty sure by the time we meet again, we'll be talking about another issue. It should be dropping shortly. I haven't seen the cover. It's a mystery to me. I'm not even sure what's in there, but I'm sure it's something fun. You don't want to miss any issues, so head on over to PWI-online.com. One thing I know is coming up is the PWI 500. I was texting with Kevin, and I think we may be starting to at least try to schedule some meetings. And like I've talked about, I think maybe, no spoilers, and I'm only one person. I feel like my top 10 is starting to come into shape. How about you, Brian?
Yes. I mean, I've been trying to keep a very open mind just because it's been so fluid and there are so many great contenders right now. And it almost seems to, in my mind, it'll change week to week.
Yeah.
So I'm trying not to commit to too many placements in my mind until we're really there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the one thing I do try to be mindful of is recency bias, right?
Oh, yes.
And and forgetting. And sometimes that really can hurt a wrestler, and not just recency bias, but timing. The one I always think about is he just got married over the weekend, Jinder Mahal. Did you see the 3MB reunion photo?
I didn't see that. No.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, what's his name? The other two, Drew and Heath, in their traditional Indian attire with what do they call him these days? The former Jinder Mahal.
Yes.
Someone posted a video of Drew McIntyre getting down on the dance floor during the wedding too. So if you chance look that up, that's pretty fun.
Kind of an aside and a tangent, but one thing that I think is super cool about seeing something like that is that Drew McIntyre was available on a weekend to go to a wedding, and I think it speaks to like the new WWE schedule. We were lamenting the loss of the house show.
Right.
But it's great that these guys now can kind of live lives outside of the ring.
Yeah, Rob Van Dam told me when I interviewed him for my book that he was not able to attend the Sheik's funeral because of commitments. They were going over to Europe or something like that on a giant tour. Not to say that still wouldn't happen today, but it's far less likely. They definitely, that is the upside. They have much more of their own personal time to play with, and that's been something that's been gradually happening for a very long time, because even the guys from a few years ago, even at their worst, their schedule was so much better than it would have been in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Well, my point was Jinder Mahal had a pretty good I guess depends on your definition of good. He had a fairly long, by the standards at the time, world title reign.
He did, yeah.
He broke into the top 10. And it was just kind of, he was in between grading periods or evaluation periods. So it was sort of like on the tail end of one and on the early end of the next. So got to be mindful not to forget what guys accomplished at the very beginning of the evaluation late last summer.
Yes.
Yeah. And that goes for a lot of guys. I mean, you forget like, oh yeah, that guy had a world title run in this evaluation period. So anyway, getting ahead of ourselves for the moment, this is the issue that you want to go grab of PWI And rather than just grab it, subscribe, then you'll get this one, you'll get the next one, and so on and so forth. You won't miss them. You won't have to worry about getting to your newsstand. I saw Barnes & Nobles yesterday in the city, which is so rare. But assuming you don't have a Barnes & Nobles near you, just have it sent to your email or your inbox, the digital edition. We have combos now and everything else over at PWI-online.com. Okay, let's talk a little current events. And as I mentioned, Night of Champions over the weekend, not the biggest pay-per-view on WWE schedule, but I thought worth talking about. Again, now that we're so many years into the Saudi area that it's sort of become normalized, but some of the issues that were really prevalent in the early days of the Saudi shows kind of creeped back up again, in part because of Punk's involvement. Punk was one of those guys. Granted, he wasn't working for WWE at the time, but he's one of those guys. Never, ever, ever would I ever do one of those shows. And there he is in Saudi, literally apologizing to fans, kind of very much a change of heart, a change of tune. I think that rubbed some people the wrong way, him being the kind of like the rebel figure. And WWE, for whatever reason, I think it's a terrible idea, leaned into it, kind of made it a centerpiece of the storyline with Cena. I think it just sort of maybe castrated is too hard a word, but a little kind of like emasculating for a Punk in that, again, he was the guy who stood up against this. And in the end, he was not only the ultimate company guy, but Cena called him out for it in the promo, which I think was that's a whole other thing. A terrible, just from a business perspective, what a bad idea that whole promo was. I watched it almost in awe, like, what are you doing? Like, this is CM Punk. Why are we doing this to him? So anyhow, we could talk about the match later, but it is interesting, the evolution of these shows for better or for worse. And I think I've had something of an evolution too, in that I very much have like two minds of it. I mean, I get why some folks would find these shows distasteful. To an extent, I do too. But I think you also can't look past the fact that the shows have changed from those early days where they were kind of like the freak show, right? It was like, we've joked here how like they wanted to book, whatever, Yokozuna, King Kong Bundy there, and or the whatever 80-man Royal Rumble. I mean, everything had to be like some huge a spectacle.
Hogan versus Flair.
Yeah. Now it's become just kind of another show. But I do think they try to throw them a bone and create things that are supposed to be special, like the King of the Ring or like the Crown Jewel title last year. It feels like sort of the assistant manager position, like just to kind of like pat you on the head and let you know that, we're thinking of you. But they've just sort of become regular shows. And I think like the big revolution is, and this part, I mean, I think is kind of cool in a way, is seeing the evolution of the fans. I mean, these are WWE fans now, where those early shows, it was like all the Saudi princes around ringside. Nobody had never seen a wrestling show again. The crowd was kind of muted. Now you've got 30, 40,000 fans singing along to every word. I mean, they clearly are WWE fans. They follow the product. They follow the characters. They're invested. I think that says something about the evolution of popular culture in that part of the world. And as much as, again, I understand like shunning these shows, not wanting to be part of it, I also am mindful of coming down on a people because of what their government does, and some of this has been affected by our own politics in our country. And I know I wouldn't want to be judged, or my fellow citizen to be judged by the decisions of our leaders. And where you saw some of that even in wrestling was when WWE went to Canada a few months ago for Money in the Bank, and they booed the national anthem. And on one hand it's disheartening, and on the other hand you're like, I get it. I get why you would boo the national anthem, and I think a lot of fans would be like, just know that that's not us. I mean, the decisions of our leadership's not us. So I don't know, a mouthful there, but Brian, have your views on these Saudi shows changed over the years?
Well, I have to give an asterisk to what you just said there. The difference to me is WWE is not doing business with the Saudi people. WWE is doing business with the Saudi government.
Right.
Hence Punk's infamous tweet about the blood money and so on and so forth. There is, I think, still for me a certain level of discomfort there. I generally watch them now, whereas I didn't used to, but that's really for professional reasons more than anything else. I mean, I'm still a little weirded out by it, to be honest, but things have changed over the years. You're absolutely right about that. I mean, there are women there now. They are not covered head to toe and being held on a leash by men in their family, which seemed to be the feeling that of those early Saudi shows.
They are covered neck to toe.
Neck to toe.
Watching them.
No, but what I'm saying is women in the audience.
Oh, sure, yeah. But every time you have a women's match, I mean, it is kind of a reminder of like how different things are here.
But even that, devil's advocate has loosened up a bit. They're still head to toe, but in the beginning, it looked like they were having a pajama party or something. They were coming out and or like they were going to the gym. And now at least they're allowed to have some flair, some character. Some of them really subverted. I mean, honestly, the stuff that Rhea Ripley does is probably more risque than if she was uncovered half the time. I mean, sometimes she comes out looking
like her Catwoman suit.
she comes out looking like a dominatrix sometimes, which I always applaud when they find ways to get around some of that stuff. I think it's ingenious, but the attitude of the talent certainly has softened over the years. People forget. I think we talked about this last time, but even though he didn't make as big of a huge public stand like Punk had, Cena also was one of those people who wouldn't go in the beginning, and he had enough stroke to actually be able to get away with it. He's not there anymore, but Daniel Bryan wouldn't go. So I mean, that's changed certainly over the years, and the shows now, like you said, they're just part of the calendar. And as far as Punk goes, I did feel like it was a little out of line there. What they did, it was almost like some type of public humiliation.
Yeah.
In a way, like making him do this weird apology, and like Meltzer and other people pointed out, it seemed very much like a plant situation with that fan at the kickoff event. You know how he apologized to the fan in the crowd, and then a lot of people were saying that was a planted fan, and it was basically less a genuine apology and more kind of like an angle that they were doing as part of the storyline. And I'll just say this about Punk and that whole thing. It's hard to defend. It certainly is hard to defend. I mean, the guy was very public about this, and it makes him look very bad. There's no way around it. However, that said, I have to take issue with, there's people out there that are ranting and raving about the betrayal and about, Punk as the voice of the voiceless and all that stuff. And I must remind those people, this is pro wrestling.
Yeah.
And, a lot of that is a persona. I'm sorry to sound so cynical or whatever, but CM Punk is a multi-millionaire, and I'm sure he does have beliefs and things like that, but I would not want people to get too hung up on having these high expectations for the moral principles of pro wrestlers. And that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. And then there is also, this is the part that I'm certainly sympathetic to in my day job and in this job, sometimes you are given something to do that you'd rather not do, but you're an employee, so you do as your bosses tell you, and you try to do the best job of it. The one difference there, and this is always the discussion in wrestling, is that they are not employees, right? They are independent contractors, so that throws a little. But for all intents and purposes, they work for WWE. WWE tells you we're holding a show in Saudi Arabia, and you're booked on it. What are you going to do? I mean, you've got to show up. Yeah, Scott, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking that there was talk that when he re-signed with them, they had this discussion about him participating in these kinds of events. I'm not sure, how true that was, or if this was part of the whole deal. But I feel like if you're CM Punk and you're like, I don't want to go to Saudi Arabia, they're going to kind of take that in because of, you know, how influential he is with the business and the marketplace and things like that. But I get both sides. Like, people were talking like, this is someone who made this a platform of it. It wasn't just someone who just like, you know, just put it out there. Like, he was very dead set about what he said.
Right.
And when you're carrying yourself a certain way, it's almost like some of the things Hulk Hogan did, you know, is doing right now, like say your prayers, eat your vitamins. It's almost that kind of a feeling, but, you know, not to that extreme. But in a lot of ways, people believe in him. They, you know, he's carrying this flag and things like that. But we're putting these people on a pedestal when it's almost unfair. These are human beings. There's outside variables that we have no idea about. We put them, you know, there's shades of gray. There's, you know, it's not just black and white. And we're only looking at one side of things, but the whole pomp and circumstance, I think, is what bothers me. And as you guys were talking about it, is just what, you know, what Paul said, like people change and things like that sort of thing. I mean, the whole way they did it, you know, they didn't need to make it such a big thing. Like, as far as that's concerned, him just going, you know, that could have been enough. And maybe he says one thing about it, but then it just became this whole big thing. Like, he was helping them spread the message that they wanted to send, which again goes against everything that he said. I mean, we don't know behind closed doors what's going on or how he, you know, really feels and things like that. But like you said, at the same time, it's almost being torn, because should the people there be punished for something their government does, just like, you know, we are here. I mean, it's almost the same way when it's not to this extreme, but people hosting WrestleManias and the governments, you know, in all these local places. Yeah. Maybe I don't agree with the locals' politics, but WWE is doing business with these people, and I'm sure, you know, they're politicians, so they're doing some underhanded things we have no idea about. It's, you know, again, not to the extreme, you know, what's going on in Saudi Arabia. We have to look at things also in that, instead of just focusing on that. For me, though, it's just sometimes it's a little uncomfortable when you see the propaganda. I mean, I feel one thing that they have changed over the years is it's less of that. You're not seeing, you know, the Saudi prince in the ring all the time and celebrating with them and things like that. So that's kind of gotten a little less, but we're seeing these. I know every time I see like a promo for another show or something like that, I get that vibe again. That, oh my God, what are we doing here? But I was just surprised the show went on to begin with everything else going on. I mean, I guess they guaranteed the safety, but I would have felt a little uneasy going over there given the current events of everything. So, you know, everybody went in as scheduled, so everything worked out. But, you know, oh my God, what would have happened if not? Yeah.
The other thing it reminds me of is that there's been some, I don't know if it's any more than rumor, but chatter of the World Cup is supposed to be coming to the United States, and there's been a thought by some that to send a message, maybe the World Cup is not brought to the United States, and they change plans. And I think like, oh, that would really suck for soccer fans in the United States and people who look forward to it. So again, it's sort of separating the decisions of government from the people. But as far as Punk, I mean, I really do think absolutely the guy's got a right to change his view on it. And again, you got to be like the company guy, or you got to do what your boss tells you. I get all that. I think, you know, one lesson is not to overpromise, and you know, where you see this more as wrestlers, you know, swearing they're retired and I'll never ever come out of retirement. And then they do. And so Punk saying again, like, you know, over my dead body would I ever go and work there? It's like, well, before you say that, like, be sure of that. But
I don't think he ever imagined he'd be back. That's the
right.
thing.
He wasn't with you. Easy for you to say when you're not in WWE.
But then Bret Hart came back all those years later. Remember, you know, different story, but you know, again, another story of saying dealing in absolutes. Like, be careful what you say.
But I think bigger picture with all this stuff is that they really need to be careful with Punk's character more than others, because they've got something so special. You know, one sort of little thing, but I don't think it was that little thing that also came out of this, in that the Cena pipe bomb promo was Punk selling for 12 minutes from the most gentle table spot, you know, while Cena cuts this long extended promo. And Punk just looks like an absolute chump lying in the ring. And I just thought, like, oh my God, can you wrap it up so this guy can get out of there? Or couldn't you have him carried out to the back or something like that, and then do your promo? I mean, it's I thought really sloppy.
And the promo I have to say, I mean, I don't know if I'm in the minority or the majority on this, but then the week later when they had him come out there dressed like,
Oh, yeah.
that
It was toned down. Yeah.
it was like the Steve Buscemi "Hello, fellow kids" meme, where you ever see that, where it's Steve Buscemi, who does not look like a young man by any stretch, and he's like in a high school. I don't know what movie it's from. He's in a high school hallway, and he's wearing like a metal T-shirt and a hat backwards and a skateboard. That's what I hate to say. That's what Punk is not a young guy, and not only that, but even when he that's just not part of who he is. And it didn't feel, I know it's wrestling, and it didn't feel true to his character. It didn't feel like something that the CM Punk charactor would do. It felt like
Vince McMahon would script.
Yes, and it felt like something that Punk would make fun of someone else doing. I don't know. It just was not a good couple of weeks for CM Punk.
And then he does the job to Cena. And to me, in Cena's farewell run here, that's about as big a match as you could have done. I mean, up there maybe with like Roman Reigns or something.
Yeah.
I really thought this one they would hold off until SummerSlam or something bigger, and that they did it on a Saudi show blew my mind, and that it was it was what it was. I mean, I think the standards now for John Cena matches are so low. It was probably his best singles match since he's returned, but I didn't think it was a particularly good match. I mean, I thought it looked really sloppy at points. I mean, I think they needed all the run-ins and the chaos at the end of the match to sort of save the really kind of limited athleticism. So I didn't think it was good at all.
I don't agree with that part. I thought, of course, given their age and everything, I thought they were putting on a pretty good main event. And I was kind of really annoyed that I guess this is just the WWE way now. It's like you've got two pros in there. They're older guys, but they still know how to do a solid main event. I thought it was fine. And then all of a sudden it just turns into this really unnecessary mess of a thing. And I'm not even complaining about Rollins getting involved and causing the loss. I mean, to me, that makes storyline sense. But why in the world did we need all that led up to it? The whole the new bloodline people coming out and Penta doing his silly walk, which reminded me of Jeff Hardy when Matt Hardy was getting beat down in AEW and Jeff Hardy's doing his dance on the ramp.
Right.
You didn't need any of that. It just felt like it was just a hat on top of a hat kind of a thing.
It reminded me a little of Triple H and Sting at WrestleMania.
Well, it reminded me of a lot of things they do lately with these main events where there's just too much happening and it kills the match. But I also want to mention too, because I was curious, so I looked it up, talking about what they saved for Crown Jewel. This was the first world title shot on television for CM Punk since he's been back in WWE, and was his first. Wow. He had a few world title matches against Gunther on house shows, and he hasn't had a shot at the WWE Championship since The Rock in 2013. And that's what this was, which is weird that they would hold off and do this, strange.
Yeah, I thought, I'm sorry, my thought was that they would run it back at SummerSlam. So this was going to be the first match. It would end some kind of schmoz, and then you have like the grudge match at SummerSlam, which is a big deal. But no, they're moving on. So that's it.
They are.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad to say because there's so much you could dig with this story, and they're just rushing right through it. But I just think it's funny how, rightfully so, we always attack AEW for having these main events where this always happens. And here we are with WWE doing it. So, it's just interesting how that's kind of played out. And they're transitioning back to this old way of doing things, the WCW Nitro ending.
But this has been, they've been doing this for a while. And the thing is, there was a certain novelty to it, like, doing it at WrestleMania and the whole thing with the Undertaker coming out against The Rock and all this.
Yeah,
there was a novelty, but now if this is just going to be how they do all big main events, that's kind of sad. I don't know. I just can't get with that. Call me old, call me whatever you want to call me, but sometimes you just want a really good main event. I mean, even if somebody cheats to win, fine, whatever, but not this convoluted mess every single time.
I think the thought was Cena's been looking his age in the ring. He's in there with a 46-year-old guy. So we got a 40-year-old guy fighting a 46-year-old guy. we're going to need some smoke and mirrors. And I think to your point, Brian, maybe it ended up athletically a little better than some folks expected, and they thought, well, maybe we didn't need this, but they were anticipating needing it, so they went with it.
But we were talking about also Saudi Arabia being Saudi Arabia, that they always want this big spectacle. So that probably played into how the story played out too in that match.
Yeah. Let's talk about where this goes next. So Cody wins the King of the Ring, and we're getting Cody and John Cena, the rematch that I think a lot of folks thought would be much later in the year. We're getting it at SummerSlam next month now. And I'm surprised that I'm part of me is glad I'm going to SummerSlam, and that's a huge main event. On the other hand, it's like, really, we're getting it now, and what does that mean? Do they have Cody lose again? Does Cody win? And that's sort of it for the John Cena experiment, even though he's got another 6 months. They turn him babyface, and the last half of his year is as returning to the babyface role. I wonder how much of this is kind of an audible, and the heel experiment hasn't worked as well as they hoped, and maybe they're ready to kind of reverse course and go back to Cody, which was like the pat hand. So Brian, what do you make about them going with this at SummerSlam?
It seems a little soon to me, yeah, because I mean, again, you also have to sometimes account for what people get shocked at things because they pictured in their mind it playing out a certain way, and they can't believe that it's playing out a different way. Like, I think we all kind of assumed that Cena would be turning back at the very end of this run, but maybe that wasn't the plan. Maybe the idea is, well, we still want to get a few months out of you where, you're the big triumphant babyface legend and we can sell even more merch and blah, blah, blah. So maybe that is part of the thinking, or maybe Cody is not winning this, maybe they're,
and that's maybe worse. I mean,
now if Cody doesn't win this, then what that tells me is he's not getting it back at the end of this run, that someone else is going to get it, because why would you beat Cody at SummerSlam and then have him win it at the end of the year? Unless, again, maybe the only other thing is maybe this is the start of a new feud between the two where Cena wins under very, very suspicious circumstances at SummerSlam, and it leads to them feuding into the fall. I mean, that's possible too.
Yeah. Scott, what do you think about Cody and Cena at SummerSlam?
I think maybe we're getting a trilogy with this too. I can see that happening, but I actually thought we were going to see Cena kind of transition back to being the good guy earlier before his end of the run, because I think they want to build that goodwill back up and have him really celebrate him, his last matches. So I actually think the opposite. I think I kind of was expecting, like, during this time of year for things to kind of slowly turn back. Like, you're seeing some subtle moments where you're like, okay, is he going to, he's going to do the right thing. He's going to do the right thing. And then, he goes back. So it's almost like he's slowly getting back into it. I'm not sure if, what's coming up with Peacemaker coming out and him having to, maybe he has to go away for a little while. So that could play into how we see Cody maybe getting the title back. But I think they think maybe Cody needs to be back into this because he's going to be he's the QB. He's the guy that they want to see carry the torch. So him being out of the title picture for longer than they would want, maybe that's what they see also is like, hey, we need to get back to this because, it's been too long. Cody's kind of just been in the wayside right now. Let's put him back in the spotlight. And for me, I hope it kind of rights or wrong when it comes to their match at WrestleMania and how things unfolded with Travis Scott. So hopefully, things go a little better this time around. So I think things are going a little bit where I kind of thought, actually.
I think, there's a bigger discussion of whether WWE is cooling off a little bit, and that's been, there's been some talk of that. And I think some metrics show that certainly from the peak that they have cooled off a little bit. So I wonder if there's any panicking going on and saying, all right, let's just go back to what we had. Let's get the bloodline up and running. Let's get Cody as the world champion. Let's heat up Roman Reigns and just kind of put everything back the way it was when they were really red hot. But I think the Peacemaker thing is a good point. I mean, if he's got to go promote that show, he might not be as available as he has been the last few months. Bigger picture, something you want to add, Brian?
No, no. Well, just very quickly, the one thing that we're forgetting here is it almost seems like history is repeating itself again. Like this is just such a wrestling cycle. We're back to all the main event guys are middle aged, and where are the young guys? And we need new stars in a hurry. I mean, part of it is the business is so different now. This Seth Rollins, he's been on the main roster for 13 years. Roman Reigns as well. Roman Reigns is turning 40 if he hasn't already. Cody 40 just turned 40. Punk is what? Well, in the 40, 44.
I just wrote something in my column about this. So Cena's had 3 real title challengers since winning the belt. Randy, who I think is 45.
Yes.
Punk, who is 46. And R-Truth, who is 53. I mean, this is the youth movement.
Yeah, I thought he was going to. I thought he was going to work with younger talent during this run too, and I haven't seen much of that. So that's a good point. That's kind of
I get that, but I also get that like you want to save Cena for the biggest stars, and the most marquee matches. And the reality is that those guys are going to be a little older. I mean, who is a real marquee star under 40? I mean, I guess there's a handful of guys.
They've done a much better job with the women of doing that, of keeping that churn going. Because if you think about it, you've got that first wave. I don't want to call it first wave, but you know what I mean, where it was Charlotte Flair, Bayley, Sasha Banks. You had that wave, and that's very much in the past now. I mean, Charlotte Flair may not want to hear that, but there's now we've got the Rhea Ripleys and the Bianca Belairs and things. So it seems like with the women, they're very much conscious of that. Well, but the men, they just let these guys coast forever.
I think there's a reality that part of it, and this might be distasteful, is the appearance or the importance of aesthetics and appearance for women versus men. And
I agree. I don't agree with it, but I agree.
Yeah, I mean that is the truth. I mean, like you see it with Nikki Bella coming out a few weeks ago. Nikki Bella looks great, and I don't know how old she is. Maybe she's in that 40 range, something like that. But Nikki Bella with the hat back, you talked about the Buscemi thing. I mean, there's a little bit of that too, and I think that look, it's pro wrestling at the end of the day. These women are out there half naked, and for a part of the audience, the selling point is how they look. And so, I agree that, I don't agree with that direction, but I think it's part of the conversation why you see fewer older women getting the limelight.
Yeah, because now even the Rhea Ripleys and Bianca Belairs, I mean, they're not old by any stretch, but they've been around long enough now that now you see newer women on the way up, like the Tiffany Strattons, and they're coming up, and nipping at their heels. But that's what they should be doing with the men
it's a good thing. Even if the intentions are wrong, it works out. It's good. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think there's more upward mobility in some ways for women in WWE than for men. Yeah, even Jey Uso, who's the hot new thing. What is he? 38, maybe something like that.
He's been there longer. He's been there 15 years, 16 years on the main.
I think he's right around 40. I mean, LA Knight. None of these guys are young guys. Real quick on King of the Ring. I mean, I also thought it was maybe worth a conversation of the history of King of the Ring and how it's evolved and does it make sense? When they and I know King of the Ring goes back to this regional house show tournament in the Northeast, but essentially talking about the pay-per-view era of King of the Ring. Early on, it was, I think, about like who is our next guy, who do we want to coronate as the next main event star, and I think it didn't always land, but that was the intent back on, whether it was Steve Austin or Triple H or even Mabel and Billy Gunn. These are Brock Lesnar, people who they had their eye on for being big stars. And then when they brought it back, whatever it's been 10 years ago or so, it was very much something different. It was kind of like a mid-card, kind of participation trophy. And Xavier Woods and these types who were realistically not going to factor into the main event. And now they've made it sort of what the Royal Rumble is to Mania. It sets up SummerSlam, which is good in that the stakes are higher. It's a reason to follow, but it also necessitates that it become a different thing, because now you need a truly big star to win the King of the Ring, because he's headlining SummerSlam. So I see Cody win, and I was really kind of caught off guard because I was like, Cody is King of the Ring. I mean, it feels like kind of a demotion in a way for a guy who's achieved so much. But so any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like you said, it's kind of going back to what it used to be, because the first one on pay-per-view was Bret Hart, and Bret Hart had already been world champion by that point. In fact, he just lost it. So in a way, like, that's kind of like this one, where the King of the Ring was used not so much to make a new main event guy, but to help to reestablish a main event guy who might have lost some steam, to say this guy is still important, this guy is still a threat. And that's kind of what they seem to be doing with it now. I mean, it's been so stop and start over the years that they stopped doing it as an annual pay-per-view in 2002. I remember because I was there at the time. And ever since then, it's been stop and start. Every few years they do one, then they forget about it. This is the first time they've done it 2 years in a row since those days, since like back in the early 2000s when they stopped doing it as a pay-per-view.
But it's a completely different thing now. I mean, that was one match on a show. Yeah,
it is. And I miss having the entire tournament on the show. That was kind of fun.
I was gonna say,
no, Scott, what were you going to say about
that?
I
was going to say, I agree with you. I love the drama of it unfolding in real time, like Jake the Snake Roberts having to go to the hospital, and then Stone Cold having to go to the hospital and coming back, and made the drama, made the King of the Ring so important, because they had to wrestle not once, not twice, but maybe 3 times in one night. And that was kind of the centerpiece. So I get having the qualifying matches on the other shows, which was great, but then they made the focal point, the King of the Ring, and as that tournament aspect of it. So I agree with you, Brian. That was like my favorite part of having a King of the Ring.
Well, I know there's a lot of people in wrestling who don't like tournaments.
This is the point I was going to make. Yeah.
I think it's among fans and also among people in the business. I'm not one of those people. I'm a big mark for tournaments. I loved WrestleMania 4, which people always talk about as one of the worst ones, right? And from a business point of view, it was one of the worst ones. It was like a total collapse after 3. It really was like a wake-up call. I liked it. I loved King of the Ring for that idea, just the one-night drama, But even I have to acknowledge, doing it every single year, it could get stale. There's almost there's got to be raised stakes or what's it all about? And they did it for a good decade and kind of like wrung it dry and then didn't want to do it again. But I think by doing it this way, where you get the title shot, it kind of juices it up a little bit. But I would so much rather have, like Scott said, for it to be the one night thing. That's the whole drama. Like you ran the gauntlet, you survived this whole thing, this grueling thing. And that to me is the whole reason to do it. It's the whole reason to do it. So I have mixed feelings.
It makes the accomplishment of winning the King of the Ring more impressive, yes, because they're able to have that story. But the tournament format has always kind of been fraught for WWE, in part because but by necessity, you can't promote matches ahead of time, right? I mean, other than whatever's in the first round. And you talk about WrestleMania 4. I remember how many letdowns there were because there was the assumption that you're going to get Ricky, Steamboat, and Macho Man, and you didn't. Or King of the Ring 95 was another a famously bad pay-per-view. Where I remember, like I was on in the Click, when Shawn was the babyface on the come up, and this felt like this was all about coronating Shawn Michaels as the next guy, and he eliminated him in the first round. So it is tough when you can't promote ahead of time, that when your card is kind of a mystery, because what you're left with is just what the work will be in the ring without any storyline. And this is something AEW, Tony Khan likes tournaments even more than you do.
That's too much tournaments.
I was going to say, I think the problem is there are too much tournaments. Even in WWE, they'll have tournaments for crowning champions and things like that. If it was just like one tournament that, rule them all per se, I think it would have a lot more impact then. Like people see tournament now, they're like, oh, great, here's another
That's
tournament.
True. And especially because the WrestleMania 4 tournament, for example, God, I mean, I don't have everything in front of me, but I think that was the first big tournament that the WWF had ever done ever. And I'm not even just talking about, in the Hogan years. I mean, ever. I think they did a couple of tag team tournaments in the 70s when the title was vacant, tournaments,
Rio de Janeiro, they had the Intercontinental title.
Right.
But see, like in the,
I've got a tape of that somewhere. Yeah.
In the old days, the tournaments would be a farce. Like half the matches would be fictional. They didn't really happen, and then they would just push people along. But that's
Survivor
what
Series 98, when they had a vacant world title for some reason, where The Rock turned. That whole night was a tournament.
Yeah, but I mean, WrestleMania 4 was a first, and that's why it felt so special. It was the first time the title was ever vacant. And you're right, there's a point to that. It's like we have tournaments every other minute now, every time we turn. The problem with Tony Khan in the tournaments is he seems to use the tournament idea as like this ready-made storyline. It feels lazy to me. It's like I don't have to book these guys. I don't have to come up with compelling stories or issues because, hey, they're in a tournament and they're trying to win this tournament. And it just starts to feel like a crutch.
Yeah. And again, I mean, we talked about Tony Khan. The highest priority for him and for AEW is match quality. And that's why I think he gets really excited for tournaments, because he just thinks, oh, this pairing would be amazing and this pairing would be amazing. And maybe not giving as much importance to the storyline behind it. At the end of the day, I mean, I think WWE moved, and maybe you know better than I would, Brian, since you were there. I imagine they moved away from King of the Ring because it wasn't really working, right? I mean, you had the big four pay-per-views at the time, which was Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, and WrestleMania, right? And this was sort of, they made it 5, but I don't think fans ever fully bought in to King of the Ring as on par, even with like a Survivor Series.
I think they were starting to feel really painted in by it. And that's not to say you could make an argument that they weren't necessarily right, because the last few King of the Rings there, especially the ones I was there, they were really using it to create new main event guys. And it was working, I have to say.
Yeah.
2000 was Kurt Angle, and that was that incredible rookie year that he had where he was winning everything. 2001 was Edge, which was like him breaking out from the Christian tag team. 2002 was Lesnar. Like you said, they did the whole thing with The Rock. He wins the title at SummerSlam. It wasn't an official winner gets a title shot, but that's how it worked out. They just pulled the plug on it. I think Vince just got tired of it. I think that's all it is. He just got tired of doing it.
Do you like the SummerSlam stakes? The title shot. It gives it more importance than other. Again, Xavier Woods, and God bless him. This was like his dream. This was sort of the story with Xavier Woods, that he was just the King of the Ring mark and always wanted that title, and that's fine. All due respect, I mean, to me, that's kind of a low point for King of the Ring, because putting it on a guy who is super talented, but clearly you didn't have big plans for, shows you that you weren't giving this title much importance.
There was somebody on commentary, I could have swore it would just happen this year. I don't know, everything blurs together after a while. When they were talking about the stakes of getting the world title shot for King of the Ring, somebody on commentary, I know what it was. It was Wade Barrett, because Barrett had been King of the Ring.
Sure.
And I think Barrett made a comment on commentary where he was like, well, back then what King of the Ring meant was you got to like wear a crown for a year and call yourself the king. But now you get this title shot. So they're clearly sending that message. It's complicated for me because we've talked about how Royal Rumble has become this thing of booking yourself into a corner where there's only a handful of people that could ever win it because you've got to give the title shot. There was something to be said for when it was unofficially a coronation of a new main event guy, but it wasn't written in stone. You're getting a title shot on such and such a date. But I'm willing to give it a shot and see how it goes. I mean, it's a new thing. I have an open mind.
We haven't talked about the Queen of the Ring. Jade Cargill wins it, so she gets the title shot, right? Has she, presumably against, I don't know who is she picking?
Tiffany Stratton, I guess.
Yeah. I guess,
Yeah.
And I feel like we say this all the time, coming off of the Jade performances, not the greatest performance in the ring. And now we're however many years into the Jade Cargill experiment. At some point, it's like you do stop making excuses of like, well, she's only been in the ring for a few years and hasn't had that much.
But at the same time, they're going to promote Great Khali to be world champion. I will forever make that the argument. Like, if they put him in that position, like Jade at least is putting into work, and she's working with veterans and things like that, trying to boost her up. I mean, one day it might just like click for her. But yeah, as far as that, but I just thought the reaction too for her now is kind of slowly getting waned a little bit.
Yeah, the novelty wears off. I mean, what she is, we'll talk about him maybe in a moment. It's sort of Goldberg, right? I mean, she comes through the curtain, and you're like, wow. But then she's got to work, and the work isn't so great. So I think some of that star power wears off.
She got a push that is like a once in a lifetime push coming in. And the thing is, now she's been there a year and a half, right? Has it been about a year and a half, maybe even more?
Yeah,
and
more, yeah.
And so protected. She was in that tag team with Bianca forever. She's at only now is she having consistent singles matches on television. She never really was. And I feel like now that she's back from this injury, whatever the heck it was or whatever was going on there, this seems to me like they have her in the do or die scenario where it's like, okay, enough is enough. This is it. We protected you as much as we could. Now it's sink or swim. You were in the tag team. We did this. We did that. You had the injury. Now you're back. Now you have to show us. And I feel like that's the position that she's being put in. And if that match at the Saudi show is an example, I mean, I don't know what to say. It was
she's in there with the best.
Yeah, she's in there with
right.
Yeah. She's in there with somebody who could really take care of her. She screwed up the finish, the pin, and in fairness, I think something happened there. It looked like she pulled a groin muscle or something. And she slipped in the middle of doing her, her trademark pin that she does where she kind of leans back. Something happened. She was in pain, but still, it's not a good look. I mean, they gave her that moment, like, show us now. And she really did not. Even the promo after was just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm picking on her, but everything about it just felt like the crowd felt not hostile, but just sort of like, they just wanted her out of there and just get on to the next match. Like, she gave this impassioned promo and it just didn't connect. It was almost like she was annoyed with the fans. It just didn't work at all.
I think let the fans get to her. Go ahead.
Yes, Scott. Right. She let them get to her. Yes.
Yeah, that was the thing. And then, yeah, just as you said, like, even on the mic, it seems like she might be like lost at the time when she's letting the crowd kind of get the best of her in these kind of moments. And it's unfortunate because she has such an amazing look and things, and so it's hard to say. I mean, she's being given all the tools to do well, so it's about putting it together. But I agree with you. Now it seems like now there's nothing. It's just she's the focal point. It's just her. There's no Naomi. There's no Bianca Belair. It's time to shine, or get off the pot, as they say.
Yeah, and I think she's hurt by there being so much talent in the women's division. Is that there's such a contrast with most of the women that she's in the ring, that they're so much better than her. And the promo thing you brought up, Brian, I think is a really big part of it. I mean, that's such a huge part of what this business is. And she hasn't really shown a knack for being able to really like convey what her personality and her character is. And I think some of that is that she's supposed to be mysterious. Maybe she's supposed to be a woman of few words. But at some point it's like, yes, you've got this amazing look, but so did Brackus. Remember Brackus? Like at some point it's like that is only one box in several boxes of what it takes to be a big star. And if you are really deficient in the others, it's just not close to enough that you look amazing. So, I'm all about give her opportunity, give her time to grow. But at some point, it's like, yeah, you got to cut bait. When you're getting into how many years it's been now? I mean, forget just WWE, but she's been at this now.
She was there from almost the beginning of AEW, right?
Yeah.
So maybe like 6 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's also like getting the reps in. Much of that time, she wasn't really given time.
And again, no house shows, right? So I mean, not working very much, So anyhow, on the topic of people with amazing looks and maybe not that much ability in the ring, Goldberg is getting a world title shot at
I thought you were talking about me, Al. Okay.
Brian, when we last talked, we were questioning what was the Jey Uso title loss about. Where are they going? And I think you brought up maybe Goldberg, and here it is. I mean, confounding to me. I get wanting to do a big Goldberg retirement match, I think it's fine. I think in Atlanta, Sharon's main event makes all the sense in the world. I don't know why it has to be for a world title. I would think it would work better if it wasn't for the world title, because then you could have Goldberg win. And I feel like Goldberg on his way out should win. So we have one of two options coming up. Either he's going to lose in a competitive match with Gunther, which I don't think makes Gunther look good, that he had to struggle to beat Goldberg, or we're going to have Goldberg win the World Heavyweight title, on his way out, and presumably just vacate it. So I don't know what they're doing here.
I think that, well, first of all, if he wins this thing, I'm pretty sure that would make him the oldest world champion of all time. He'd be older than Vince was.
That's the one I came to mind. Like,
I think Vince was like 54. He'd be older than Vern Gagne. He'd be older than Thez, and certainly older than at any point that Hogan or Flair were champion. He's
not
almost
Mae Young though. Mae Young.
Yes, that's true. Or Moolah. He's almost 60. I think he's like 58, definitely very late 50s. Maybe I don't know. I'm the biggest fan of wrestling history and nostalgia. But the thing about it is, am I wrong in saying this feels so disconnected? Like, why would fans today care about this guy, especially if you're younger and even people our age? Look, I say our, I don't know if we're all the same age, but here's the thing. This guy, let's break it down. He had a really good run 16 years ago that lasted for a year and a half? And
16 years ago. No. 20.
No, I'm sorry. 26 years ago. Time's going by. 26. Woo! But 26 years ago. And what was it? It was less than 2 years. Yeah. What are we doing here? How much life can you squeeze out of this? Let me put it this way. He was a phenomenon, without a doubt, in 1998, a freak of nature. He was the hottest thing in wrestling. He was unbelievable. But what he did back then does not in any way warrant what has followed for all these years afterwards. I mean, people sometimes criticize the Ultimate Warrior for a guy who had a short run and, the legacy lasted forever. But even he at least had a good, almost a good 5 years in there where he really burned himself into the mind of a generation of fans. But this was, it was really big and exciting. But can we move past this now? There's no way, shape, or form that this is earned, or that I think the majority of fans even want to see this.
No, yeah, I don't use this term a lot, but I think Goldberg, respectfully, is the definition of overrated in that he was never that big a deal. I mean, he was a big deal.
No, he was a
big deal, but he also became the top guy in WCW after WWE already took over. He was never the biggest draw on Monday nights. And I think to your point, it was really abbreviated because that streak, the first half plus of it was beating the WWE just put out a I don't know if it's old, but I just saw it recently in the WWE Vault channel, like a documentary about the streak. And granted, the streak was a marketing gimmick. It wasn't really 100 and whatever and but it was really well done. But another part of it is, if you were ever going to retire Goldberg, the time to do it was when he worked with Brock a few years ago, because I thought that was done really well. I thought when he came in and he ran through Brock Lesnar in whatever it was, 12 seconds, I thought that was beautiful. I mean, it's like, yes, that's how you do it.
Yeah, it was.
And then he put him back over, gave him the title back at WrestleMania. I mean, to me, that should have been it. I don't think he's, and I don't mean physically, I think he looks just fine, but I don't think that the act has aged well. Whenever you see Goldberg talk in interviews, talk about his career, I think he comes off really bad. I mean,
yes.
I think
in that death of WCW, or who killed WCW, he came off horribly in that thing. He came off like an entitled jerk.
Yeah, they hated Callous when you talk about like the Bret Hart stuff, and he's like, "Get over it, Bret." I mean, I
think for him though is when it comes to, we know that he just wanted a paycheck. We know he really didn't love professional wrestling. I mean, he's a guy off the gridiron, got injured. He fell into this opportunity and he's, milked it ever since. So But I think for this, I think what they see it as is there's so many shows and they got to make everything seem special and everything different. And they have the Saturday night main event obligation, and then they're trying to tie it into a nostalgia thing. And I think that's where this Goldberg thing is. But they didn't do him any favors when they kind of have him come out and then just have him just kind of challenge, saying that he's next just because. I mean, that also didn't do him any favors.
Well, he insulted him a few months ago on television.
Yeah. I mean, they could have easily had him spear a couple people in quick matches, and then people would be like, okay, he's at least working his way to a match. But, it sets a
like a comeback story.
Yeah. Have him, obliterate some people on the way in out, not, working his way to that world title match. But for me, I can almost see Goldberg winning, but then Seth Rollins coming and cashing in, and then and then that gives him the title.
You know what? Yeah. No, I was going to say that gave me an idea, because I think the only way, and I'm really playing devil's advocate here, I'm trying to be positive. The only way that a story like this could really work, and this is not how they're approaching it, is if you do like a Rocky Balboa kind of thing. And I mean the movie Rocky Balboa, the 6th Rocky movie, where where he comes back after 20 years, right? And it's a great movie, but it's like, and he's about the same age as Goldberg is. You do this thing where there's serious doubt. He's not the superhero anymore. He's almost 60 years old. Maybe he can't do it anymore. And God damn it, I don't know if I could say that. He's going to try his best. He's going to scrape and scratch. He's going to train. He's going to try to prove people wrong. He's even got his son there with him, like Rocky did. The whole thing where you're thinking, my God, this guy, can he still do it? At that age, oh my God, it's unthinkable, right? Against this monster. Okay, maybe. But that's not how they're doing it. They're just doing it like, yeah, I'm still Goldberg. It's 1999. And it's completely
there's a disconnect.
Tone deaf. Right. It's an absolute disconnect.
I'll say that the sit down promo interview that he did with Cole, I thought he did a good job. I thought that was a better promo from Goldberg than I've seen in a while. I thought he had some good fire and intensity working with what's clearly scripted lines. But yeah, I mean, on top of everything, I've got zero trust that he could have a workable match with Gunther. And that's the one thing about Goldberg is I always got like the idea of Goldberg, like I got the idea of the Ultimate Warrior or the Road Warriors, which is like big, strong, unstoppable guy will run through you, no cells. There's been a place for that in wrestling always. I think like my issue is I don't know if Goldberg ever really got it. It's like I don't think that he understood like what he was, and to I was watching again that documentary where he talked about working with DDP. This is when he was like at his height, and this is probably the best match he ever had, and knocked himself out like hitting his head against the door on the way out, and with the Undertaker years ago, that disaster of a match in Saudi Arabia, knocked himself out a couple times. I mean, there really is like.
It's like nobody told him that it's a work,
Yeah, it's sloppy and dangerous to himself, and so I feel for Gunther because again, two options: either you have a competitive match against a 58-year-old guy, or you lose to a 58-year-old guy.
I think that I always think about the plight of the younger fan. That's the thing here. It's like for fans under 30. What does this mean? What does this mean? It's like the wrestler your dad liked or your older brother. And the thing about it is, can you imagine? I mean, think about it. And I've made these kind of comparisons before. Imagine being a fan, any of us, or, at my age, I was in college age in the Attitude Era. Imagine being a fan in the Attitude Era. And this guy from like the 70s just keeps coming back because he had this great year in 1972 that everybody talks about and where he beat everybody. And he just keeps coming back and wants one more match over and over. Wouldn't you be like, God, get this freaking guy off my TV already? Where's Austin? Where's The Rock?
Yeah.
Where's Foley? You know what I mean? Like I try to think outside myself. What do non-old fans think about this? Probably not much.
I mean, when I saw Terry Funk on TV, I was like, "This is cool for some reason." And he's
but Terry Funk is different because Terry Funk had been doing things all through the years.
He was
and
consistent.
he'd been keeping his name out there, and part of his persona was, I'm this old guy who won't stop. There was a certain pathos to that. It's a little bit different from this, don't you think?
Yeah. I was just trying to relate it from when I was a kid and I see like a Bob Backlund coming on my TV screen.
That's a good
like,
example. Yes.
And then what is he doing on here? Like, I don't know. This is the new
Bob
generation.
Backlund was 43, something like that.
43.
I don't know why I felt like he was older.
No, but Scott, you're absolutely right, because that is how he was being presented, as the old guy. I was watching an old show the other day where he had a house show match with the Mountie or something, and the Mountie was cutting a promo on him, and the Mountie goes, Bob Backlund, if you could get out of your rocking chair long enough to make it to the ring. And I'm thinking, rocking chair, the guy's not even 45.
Younger than AJ Styles. Younger after
but that is how they presented him. Absolutely. And it came off badly. He was this guy from an earlier era who had done great things in that era, but he hadn't been around in a really long time, and he meant next to nothing to the young fans of the WWF at the time. Yeah.
But he did reinvent himself in his
yes.
So I give him, that was a fun one.
What Goldberg has going for him is that he still basically looks like Goldberg, right? I mean, he looks like he's in good shape. We'll see when he takes his shirt off, what he looks like at 58. It's been a few years since we've seen him wrestle, but even last time we saw him, cosmetically, he looks good. I mean, can he fire up? Can he breathe in the smoke? Can he hit a spear? There's not a whole lot that he needs to do, but I agree. I'm not sure what the appetite is. I think there's a whole lot of people get nostalgic for Goldberg, in part because he wasn't a WWE act, right? I mean, he was the competition. So
yep. No, I was just going to say he should be the underdog here. I'll say that's. I
think that they think that they're telling that story.
They're not.
They haven't told much of a story at all. I mean,
we haven't seen him barely. So that's also been a problem. I mean, you guys going for the title, he's not present.
How old is his son now? Is he?
I think college, right? He's grown. Yeah, he's grown.
Yeah, I wonder how much of it is maybe that. I mean, are they trying to get his kid up and running? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the scenario should have been, oh God, you can't beat this guy. He's a monster. He's going to kill you. You haven't been in the ring in so long. This is your Ivan Drago. You can't do this. What are you doing? What are you thinking? There's so many things they could have done with this, and no, just lazy.
Yeah. And really, in some ways, Gunther's like the worst guy to put him. Who should have been like a Chad Gable or something like that, right? That he could destroy and will bump around. I say this all the time. I think it's the last time we really saw Goldberg on a big stage, or maybe not, but he had that match with Ziggler at SummerSlam a few years ago, where I thought it was great, and I thought Ziggler was perfect foil for him. Remember, Goldberg went in there, speared him in like a second. Ziggler got up and says, it wasn't ready or whatever it was, and they restarted the match, and he did it again. And it's like, I mean, that's how you send Goldberg off, right? I think like that's how you do it. So.
Or you bring back Hugh Morris one night, and then full circle. We're done.
He wants that back. So wrap up soon, but real quick, I'm not sure we're gonna have an opportunity to preview All In before the show. We got a couple of weeks. It's AEW's WrestleMania largely taking shape. Scott, and any thoughts on the card headlined with a Cowboy and Mox?
I actually think. I think they've done a great job in making this feel special, like a bigger event, because now we're seeing the advertising on the stadium already. They have a whole week of festivities going on. So all that I think is also playing into it being a big show. But, we're not that far out, and, there's not a lot of matches formally announced. So that kind of makes me a little uneasy. I mean, if this is your biggest show of the year, I want to have long-term stories being built. I mean, Jon Moxley, Hangman, I think, and Kenny Omega, Okada, and Tony Storm, Mercedes Moné. Those are interesting.
Big matches, all three of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are great, huge matches. But if you want to make this really something special, I don't want to see a rush job. I know this week, they're probably just going to announce a bunch of matches at once, and it's going to be like a matter of fact. So that's the only thing that concerns me. But the main matches, though, I feel like those are ones that, okay, this is a special show that we're going to be getting here, especially with Hangman in Texas. I think that's kind of like the hometown hero kind of thing going into this big match. So I think they've done a decent job in that respect.
I guess add to that Bucks versus Swerve Bray, which they kind of announced, which I'm not feeling at all.
Just a random match.
But I mean, with all the star power, especially with Swerve and Ospreay, I mean, to kind of, I don't say bury them in a tag team match, but you'd think that there'd be something more for them. But I get it. I mean, like, that's how you end up with a bloated card with like 6 main events. I think they've done a fine job of more than the last couple of years All In. The matches at the top feel like the kind of matches that should be at the top of your signature stadium show, your WrestleMania. I mean, you can quibble about whether that should have been Hangman in that spot versus Ospreay, but they've committed to it. They're telling that story, like you said. I think in Texas, he's bound to get a really good reaction. Brian, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm hoping that the idea behind this, because I like the match. We've all talked about how this Death Riders thing needs to just be put to sleep as quickly as possible. It's just the albatross around AEW's neck. I think even some of the most hardcore fans of AEW would agree with that. This feels to me, if it's going the way I think or hope it's going, this is almost like the Hangman Page reboot. You know, how the world title reign that he had, everybody wanted him to be world champion. It didn't have the oomph that people wanted. It didn't come off as well as people had hoped. Maybe this is the chance to try to redo it and do it better and give him a better launching off point. He seems to have even more fan support than he had back then. This is the time to do it. If they don't switch the title here, and I feel like I've said this before, but I don't even know what to say anymore about the booking over there with that title. If he beats Page, what in the world are we doing at this point? But there's also, like you said, a couple of really great matches that they have there, any one of which, honestly, could be the main event. Yeah. Omega and Okada, that's something special you could do there. I even think, I don't think they'll do it, but I think that Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm could actually even be the main event, although I just can't imagine it main eventing over those 2 matches that I just mentioned. But it could be. I mean, Toni Storm's support is off the charts. Mercedes Moné has felt, up until this thing they're doing now, like she's been treading water there, doing stuff that's not really at her level, and now it finally feels like they're putting her in a position to really be what the attraction that she had been before she got to AEW. So I'm excited to see that too. I mean, those are 3 solid matches they've got.
Yeah, I think any other major show, I definitely advocate for having the women close. I agree that the Dallas setting, I bet you they'll have some Von Erichs there. It's sort of tailor-made for that closing visual to be Hangman celebrating in the ring with the title. It sounds like they've got a lot of tickets out, so it should look really good on TV. So, I mean, AEW could absolutely use a boost, and it feels like things are kind of coming together at the right time for them. So, and I think you also you want to use this opportunity, you know, to send that, communicate that sort of vision statement, right? You know, the mission statement, and I think Hangman is a good way to do it. He's like, you know, homegrown. He's a company guy, you know, groundswell of support. You could argue that Ospreay is a more natural fit for that, but not a homegrown guy where Hangman really is. You know, I've been on the fence over the years about Hangman, but I do think he's got some momentum going into this. And as you said, almost anything is better than Moxley at this point. So yes, I hope they pull the trigger on it. All right, guys, we're gonna head out of here. Scott, thank you so much. Anything you want to promote before we head out of here?
Yeah, I just thank you guys for having me again. You can follow me, as you see right there on Twitter, SM Fishman, and then my work mostly is on TVinsider.com. You can do a search of me and see, you know, all my work there.
Excellent. So. Thanks so much. And Brian, how's the book coming along? What's the latest?
The book is coming along. I've got we're almost there. We're almost at the finish line. I've got the photo inserts all approved, the photos going in and the captions. So at this point, all of the text is approved. I think really the only thing I'm waiting on is a final cover. We had sort of a round of designs and they're doing more now. And once that cover is done and ready, I'm really going to be pushing the heck out of it as we hit the home stretch. It's probably going to start trickling out in early September. And of course, the book is called Irresistible Force: The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon. So It's just a couple of months away.
Do you have final say on the cover, or at least veto power?
I do, and I just exercised it. So that's part of why it's taking so long. I don't want to get into it all, but I mean, they did some covers, and I just said, hey, I'd like to. I felt bad. I felt like things had gone full circle. I turned into Shane McMahon from when I was working for him. But I was like, hey, I'd like to see a few more. Let's see what because I had my own ideas of concepts for it, and I just wanted to see a bunch of possibilities. That's all. I hope they don't hate me for it.
No, I think it's a fair point that you just brought up. You've got some experience here, right? I mean, like you I imagine have helped lay out your fair share of covers. So I
kind of have a feel for it. I like to think, and I just like to have options, and they were fine. The ones that they did, I just said, hey, let's just try a few more and really like dig in and see what the best one is. So I haven't heard back since then. So hopefully they're not hating me, but we'll see. And hopefully it results in a really, really good cover. It's the first and probably only biography of Gorilla Monsoon, and I wanted to get it just right.
Yeah. All right. Well, really looking forward to reading that. Thanks everybody for joining us for another week, and we will be back soon for all your PWI needs. Head on over to PWI-online.com.